I created a program called Rich Speak, which I took all the years of all the people that trained me in how to speak, present, and converse, one-on-one, one to few, one to many, and I put it into a program. And the reason why I believe that that program is by far the best sales program is because a big function of sales is how one relates to others, whether one-to-one, one to few, or one to many. And so in this era, in this age, and you know this better than me and better than most, is social media and those platforms amplifies your ability to speak. And whether it's conversational or whether it's instructional or whether it's instrumental, though that's the skill set that really gets stepped over. And I believe that's the skill set that I train a lot of people on with a lot of professional prowess.
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. And as always, folks, today I got a real treat for you. Richard Dolan in the house. What's happening?
My man, we finally did it.
Finally did it. A lot of people wanted us to meet for some reason.
I know. It must be they wanted the beer club to start, the beard club to start. And they knew that two bearded brothers like us that belonged in a studio like this.
Folks, if you guys don't know who he is, go check him out on social media at Richard Dolan. A lot of you probably do know who he is, or go to richarddolan.com. You know, he's got a podcast of his own called Courageous Conversations. It's always epic. You know, he's tied in with all kinds of celebs. His history is like you wonder how a guy ended up in such a beautiful spot. You know, originally out of Toronto, Canada, operates out of New York City. You know, coach, mentor, author, speaker, I would say inventor, confidant,
Innovator,
disruptor, wealth manager. See, like all those, nope, I'm a wealth manager. All that's just extra stuff.
You bet.
And like you're in town because of what?
I'm in town because it's the NBA Summer League. I've got some real great opportunities cooking for the exiting years of LeBron James's career, where his chief performance advisor, his health coach, his nutrition advisor, the guy who's trained him, built him, and has helped him succeed for 20 seasons, Mike Mancius and I have partnered up to create a recovery clinic in honor of those 20 years, those 2 decades of what it means to be an all-star athlete. So we're here to get business done.
So you're tied into all kinds of things. Now, you also have Rich University. Is that basically how you get rich?
Hey, listen, man, I'm so lucky that I got this name called Richard. And so to call it Rich U is not just about me, but it's about you. And so, yeah, it's a LMS. It's a learning management software system. We have an online school where everything, like anybody in our position, Brad, you and I, those who are coaches, mentors, trainers, who've got IP and things to share and tell people. I mean, we park it there so that we don't have to keep teaching it live and putting people in the rooms to drink coffee made at 2:00, served at 7. It's a great place for people to be and access. And it's been really powerful, especially since the pandemic, when events weren't happening and doing them together in person wasn't happening either.
Where were you when the pandemic broke?
Ironically, I was actually here in Las Vegas. I was here in Las Vegas for GrowthCon on behalf of Grant Cardone, our friend, who could also be a part of the Bearded Brothers Club too, by the way. He carries a good beard. Not as sharp as ours, but I digress. And it was his GrowthCon. It was a GrowthCon, and the pandemic had already started making waves in the world. And right when it hit and it shut down Vegas, about a week thereafter, I'll always remember that I was actually here in your very good city.
But because you're Canadian, no?
That's right. Born and raised in Canada.
They didn't make you go back?
Oh, heck, listen, I think now all these years later, we just finally came out of a pandemic. Canada was...
Canada's still in one.
They're, of course, of different degrees and for different reasons.
They got a bad pandemic up there. I think it's called like Trudeau or something like that.
Oh, you're close. It's called rising interest rates and burning trees. But I mean, that's just the beginning of it. But without digressing much more, Brad, I mean, the reality is that Canada really handled the pandemic both poorly but longly. They stayed in a lockdown literally for nearly 2 years.
Being in your business, you're probably very sensitive to being politically incorrect.
I think that's part of the Canadian nature. I mean, I've got a father who was Ukrainian. I got a mother who's South American. So although I was born in Canada, I do identify as a Canadian. And we are known as the 3 C's, Brad. We're known as the cheap, the conservative, and the chicken. And so we don't want to walk those tough lines. And we don't want to start having polarizing conversations amongst friends, business associates, or clients, because we know how charged they can be. But Canada's changing. They've definitely gotten a little bit racier and edgier with some of their political values and views.
So let me elevate the professionalism for a moment.
Let's do that then. Do I drop my voice an octave?
You can.
Okay, let's go.
When we could I'll probably put on the headphones and sound much better. But
Likely.
you know, these headphones on make you.
I know, but then you ask yourself, do I want to sound great or do I want to keep my hair looking good? It's a tough question.
Well, I find myself with the headphones on. I find myself always coming down here and talking a little more like this, like a DJ, like a night DJ.
Well, what I like about your setup is we're talking to each other. We're talking to each other. So if we were talking through the headphones, then we're talking for, you know, the ego of hearing our voices.
Well, one day I said, well, why are we wearing these headphones? Because people don't like them. You know, do I got to wear these? You think you look worse in them? So I'm like, I guess you don't have to wear them. The only reason I had them was to get the bomb. So I told my audio guys, listen, I want to be able to hear the bomb without the headphones.
I heard that.
And not only that, if I want,
Oh, there you go.
I got everything controlled.
There
So I'm
you
like,
go.
we don't need no damn headphones.
I like that. I like that. And by the way, you look younger with the headphones off, just so you know. I never thought I'd ever have the chance to tell you in person, but you do look much younger without the headphones on.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's funny. Now, I say I'm going to raise it up a smidge in professionalism so I can get some value on to the Bomb Squad. The Bomb Squad's the listeners. You have Rich University. You teach people how to get rich. Your book, Richology, the 7 Steps to Unleashing Your Imagination and Designing a Great Financial Life, plus your wealth management skills, all of these lead to your ability to show other people how to at least financially succeed. What would you have the average Joe do? What am I going to learn? What courses am I going through first? What's the most important thing? How about your mindset? How important is that?
Listen, I mean, first and foremost, I'm so grateful to the Bomb Squad. I'm grateful for their listenership, and I'm just grateful to be here with you. For me, I know and knew that when I was growing up as a high school dropout in a middle-class family, that financial future was not something that was going to be given or granted. It had to be created and caused. And as a result, you thought to yourself, okay, great, what do? You make some money, you find someone who you think is smart, is licensed and capable of making smart money decisions for you and your financial future. So you build these financial plans and you invest in this thing called the stock market, and you buy mutual funds you never know that own stocks that you've never seen, in businesses you don't even understand. And then, of course, 5, 10, 15 years goes by and you wonder to yourself, what happened to that money I put away for all those years? Where did it amount to? So I began to learn that your financial life is your responsibility. Your financial life is your responsibility. So as much as there's a lot of money mentors out there and financial commentators, they're all talking about the actionability of financial life planning, as in, hey, work hard, save your money, invest, spend less. But the function of that, the actual real truth behind it is like, what do you really literally do? So you're right. I mean, the basis of my urban financial life philosophy, which I called Richology, was just my own personal devised thinking on what I observed billionaires that I'd worked with, millionaires that I was working alongside of, icons, legends, and even gods of industry, as I've described to you earlier on, gods of industry, commerce, sport, and industry.
I mean, that's a pretty high name. Who would be a god of industry?
I think Drake is a god of music.
Yeah,
I think
that'd be a good one.
That's a good one. I think it's a real possibility to say that another god of sport could be someone along the lines of a LeBron James.
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
Or a Michael Jordan. Gods of culture, of sport, and of commerce isn't about being something of a religious factor. It's to say that these are people who are second to none.
Like goats.
Goats.
Which coincidentally, the origination of the word God, you go way back, goes to goad, which goes way back to goat.
And I think saying goat is less intimidating than saying God. So
greatest of all times, the goat I'm talking about. Come out.
Let's go.
There's only one of those. There can only be one in each category.
This is true.
What are you the goat of?
Well, if I was going to be the goat of anything, it would definitely have to be in the world of human betterment. In the human betterment business, I think I have to be a living demonstration of what it is I teach, I preach.
Don't you think that's lucky, though? That's lucky that you have to be, because then you get to go live what you're preaching.
Well, you choose to live as you're preaching and teaching, leading and talking. I mean, at the end of the day, it's easy to talk it. It's another thing to live it. I think the greatest way to, in fact, be the best version of yourself is to be a coach, is to be a speaker.
Well, I know you helped out Grant Cardone a bunch of ways, and you're no longer in that camp.
I'm no longer in that camp, but I'm a huge admirer of the 10X movement.
I'm surprised he's not bothering you if you're in the coaching and mentoring any kind of space, because kind of that's what he does, and usually he's like, wait, that's what I do.
Yeah, listen, if I was Grant and I'm not, I'm just not Grant, but the reality is that I don't think he sees anyone as competition, and quite frankly, nor should he. He's a brand of his own, and he's an icon of that industry.
Yes, he is.
And so,
of what industry, by the way?
I would say the personal development and professional development industry.
Dude. Oh, yeah. Sure. But now I think he's, starting to lean out of it, meaning nobody really looks at Grant Cardone anymore as a sales pro.
Well,
there's new sales pros out there that are just like, they'll eat his lunch.
Well,
Grant
and some of them,
right now is a industry titan in the real estate game.
Possible.
Is he, by the way? Because that's a big game, isn't it?
That's a big game. First of all, that's a loaded statement you just made, Brad. First of all, you called him a titan. I mean, let's not make this a debate. If he's a titan, that would be great.
Isn't he? We have to define the word titan.
What would you define a titan as?
I think Grant's a titan.
Well, then great.
But only because, I've saw where he came from. Like, dude, the guy's doing extremely, extremely well. And in that industry, I'm not in that industry. There might be people that like, oh, he's a little puppy. So I don't know. But if you're in wealth management, you probably do know.
Well, again, so if it depends on how you define titan. If you're defining titan in terms of size, breadth, and depth, then hey, maybe he might be a qualified preemie if it were to a titan. Because I'm having breakfast this morning with a gentleman who's multi-billionaire that built the resort world. He's got dozens of those around the world. Is he a titan? I would qualify that he's likely a titan.
That's a titan.
Someone who can build,
but not titan in real estate.
That guy I talked to this morning is a titan in real estate, but he can build and buy cities. So I think
would he be considered a developer?
That particular person could, but I think someone by definition a titan, someone who influences direction of cities and their futures in the real estate game. So not making this about Grant because, of course, first and foremost, God bless him for the work that he does. He's really represents a lot of people into what it means to put yourself at the source of your own success, to not be a little bitch, as he would say, to not think small. Mediocrity is not the game plan. He's done incredible work. His team has, from Jared to Sherry to Courtney, and others in that camp have done extraordinary work. And probably the one person that's done the most and has not gotten the notice for it is Elena Cardone. If there's definitely someone who deserves greatest supporting actress in the movie called Grant Cardone, it'd be Elena. Yeah,
she's nice.
She's beyond nice. She's capable. She's brave. She's courageous. She's committed.
Yeah.
She's the ultimate testament of what resolve looks like because, Grant's the leader and he might be in your terms the titan, but she's a mom and she's a wife and a leader and an author and an influencer.
And a boss.
And so I think that's something worth noting. But back to your point around Titans and what's happened with Grant and I. Grant and I had a lot of great times together working on his global domination plans for his licensing program. His brand was quite rich. It was definitely out there and very valuable. And he needed to monetize that. He needed to mobilize that. So turning his brand, his reach, his level of relevancy in the marketplace into a very tangible, commercially viable platform was very important. And I'd done a lot of work for Dragon's Den, Shark's Tank, and other licensed platforms. So doing that for him was not just simple, it was an honor. And we did our work. We pulled through, we 5X'd his licensee community worldwide. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the experience or the people that we helped. And it says a lot about that 10X community.
Yeah, well, it's a hell of a community.
It is a hell of a community.
They're loyal. But now we got the Richies. What do we call the Richies?
Well, listen, man, the Richies are cool. They're cool. You got your bomb squad, and then you got your Richies.
Are we calling them Richies?
We can call them Richies. I think Richies is cool.
Dude, everybody wants to be a Richie.
Hey, listen, people don't want to be Poories. They don't want to be. There's no book out there that says mastering mediocrity, Brad. There's no mediocrities, right? There's Richies.
Now, if someone were to say to you, what's the first thing I can do to again, there's 7 steps. Mm-hmm. What is the first step?
I think the first step is really understanding what it is your life's intention is. I think everything starts there. Right there is the keystone, Brad. If you find out what your life's intention is, some people call that your life's mission, your life's purpose, your life's quest, your destiny. All these wonderful terms that people like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and Stephen Covey had really coined. But if you understand your life's intention, what were you born with and the gifts that you've been given and have gotten and have fortified that can really light you up every day. So you never experience life like a thing to do or work to get to, but you get to do it with such joy. That's the first key. is finding out what your life's intention. So for example, when I did that work, I got to tell you, I got to be really frank. It was tough for me to understand that because I thought it was very, very intangible. I'm not an aura guy. I wasn't an energy guy. So when someone says, what's your calling, Rich? I'm like, well, I'm called to make money. I mean, I'm called to make money and make a difference. But when I was asked, well, how do you love feeling when you do that? What's the impact you make in the world that if you got to experience it on a repeatable, consistent basis, that would leave you lit up? And I said, right there, that all people are lit up. When I'm lit up, then I know other people are lit up. And so I live my life and I lead from that life's intention called all people are lit. So if I'm not lit, you won't be lit. So if I'm always lit, then I'm lighting. And that's just one example. So I think that's the first step. The first step is really understanding your life's intention. Once you get that dialed in, everything else follows suit.
Do you help people like me come up with my own IP? In other words, like, a lot of people say, Brad, you should be coaching, you should be mentoring, you should be doing all this. But I always say, listen, I don't have the programs. Like, do I have the stuff up here? Yes. But like, I don't bullshit people at all. So if like you came to me and you said, Brad, how you have a coaching program I could join? I'd be thinking, well, what can I teach you, bro? You already know the shit. Like what? But in reality, if you create some IP, some curriculum, I could say, well, Richard, if I could just, have 3 weeks to show you this, then I'd take your money. So how do you help people build their IP, their programs, their courses?
Well, that in that beautiful green room of yours, as we got to know each other, one of the challenges that you had, and I witnessed it, and I see it always, where as an investment banker by training, as a wealth management student as I am, as someone who studied human behaviors, behavioral finance, happiness economics, investor resilience, topics I've taught on and I've been published in. What's interesting is that understanding how business works and humans' relationship to those businesses was something I just immersed myself in very thoroughly. And I have to say with some prowess, why that's important is that when I would meet celebrities, whether they were an NBA basketball star who's just about to hit retirement, whether they were an actor that thinks they've done their last and final film of their career because they've just like had it with Hollywood, a musician that doesn't feel like they've got that gift anymore, or they don't have people powerfully moved by their music any longer, whatever it might be, and they're not quite clear on what's next, I was really good and remained powerfully at causing and creating futures for people. And what it was about was really understanding first what their life intention was, but more importantly, finding out where the commercial viability of what they've got left could still be extrapolated and monetized further. So in your case, as you asked me, if we were to sit down and I really got to know your gifts, your skills, your abilities, but also what the market wanted, what your fans wanted, what the bomb squad wanted, what your followers and faithful and friends wanted, and we were able to curate out of your IP what it was that we can deliver, then that becomes a very cool commercial collaboration of ours. That's what I can do. And that's what I've done.
Yeah, well then let's collaborate.
Then we should do that. 100% we should do that.
Oh, dude, trust me, man. If you could walk in and just say, hey, poof, and all of a sudden, I'm not slick, but as cool as you. See?
Oh, come on now.
You ready to rock and roll?
Listen, I can't promise everything now.
But I like, like you're lit. That's IP.
100%.
The way you explain things, that's IP. And I think people, draw towards me for one reason. They know that I'm going to tell the way it is, and I think that's the trust that connects. And so they're like, they may not want to learn how to get rich from me, even though I could teach them, but they do trust who I say they should learn from.
Now, you just hit the nail on the head. When you talk about trust, you understand there's 4 dimensions of trust. And now for all those who are listening, this is important, especially if you're a dad, if you're a wife, if you're a mom or a dad with several kids or none of your kids, even if you're someone who has employees or you're employed or you're a leader like Brad. Trust has 4 dimensions. Brad, this is big. The reason why you need to understand 4 dimensions is because sometimes when we say the word trust, it's like if someone breaks your trust, all is lost. But understanding the 4 dimensions gives you access to the various dimensions that makes it up. Let me share. The first dimension, which you have, is that you're competent. So the first requirement, the first dimension of trust is competence. There's no doubting that you're a capable, competent guy. or someone like a Grant Cardone is, as we talked about quite lengthily about, or myself in certain domains of expertise. When you demonstrate competence, you have the skill set and the ability to deliver expertise on a topic. The second dimension, though, is reliability. You are as reliable as a Swiss kept clock. I mean, that's the truth. You're consistent, you deliver value, and every time people tune in, I just shared this with you when we were in the green room, watching your posts, I can always count on your posts being of value. I mean that. So when you're reliable and you're competent, there's a lot of trust. But the third dimension is truth. Very rare have I ever heard anybody say, that Brad, he ain't truthful. And when people detect lying.
You said rarely.
Rarely.
Yeah, that means you've heard it.
Well, I'm leaving the window open. I'm leaving the window open.
Just in case?
Just in case.
Yeah.
I'm keeping you on notice.
You're very politically correct as well.
Well, I'm also an opportunist. I want to keep the dialogue open. So truth though, Brad, check this out.
Did you just open loop me?
I did.
That was an open loop.
And you're welcome. So back to me. Truth are facts, right? Truth are facts, not fantasy. But if you're going to show up on time, that's a reliability issue. But if you said you're going to show up on time and you come back and you say you weren't going to, then that's a truthful issue. But there's a fourth, and here it comes. This is the greatest gift I can give you in the time that we've got together. The fourth dimension, it's a non-trainable one, is heart. When people know you've got heart, and Brad, you've got it, you know you do. You've got heart, you care, genuinely care about people. When people know that you care, they don't care what you know. And that fourth dimension is a tough one, because what can happen is if there's a breakdown in a relationship, you can ask yourself now, well, hold on a second, were they competent? Was it a matter of their competence, or was it a matter of they just didn't show up on time? Or were they just downright distruthful, or don't they care? I had a horrible renovator that did great work. He was super competent, but never showed up on time, didn't get the work done like he said he would, right? And I got to tell you something, it made me question, was he a truthful person? But the one thing I can never, ever, ever discount, that guy cared. He did things that a renovator just wouldn't typically do. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So rather than saying I don't trust this person because he's not on time, not on schedule, not on budget, I can say, look, I know you care, right? I know sometimes you make it and sometimes you don't. I know you're skillful because look at what you built, but you're not showing up on time. And that makes me wonder, are you truthful with me? So can we handle that before we lose all trust? So when you have four dimensions, you can access the conversation in various ways to fix it, correct it, if not re-establish it. Make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, man.
The question is, does it make sense to you? But if it doesn't, hit rewind, fool. Listen to that again. It makes perfect sense. So what's your favorite, out of all your accomplishments, what's your favorite, most prideful accomplishment?
Listen, man, I'm going to break my own rule. And it's a cardinal rule, but I got to break it because you got me present to it. Is definitely my son. My son's my definite greatest accomplishment. I mean, what wonderful way to take a look at who you are by means of seeing how your children show up in the world. And so without getting into too much detail, he's a 16-year-old boy, so I'll leave him to be both private and keep his life personal. But to me, that would be my immediate answer. My immediate answer is to see what kind of...
That means you're pretty proud of him.
100% for sure.
And you give yourself a little, that's right, I did that.
Well, it's a little bit of a sigh of relief too. It's like, phew, we made it. I mean, 16 years later, he's not.
He could have went sideways too, though.
Oh, and listen.
And by the way, I wouldn't judge it because sometimes a lot of people are quick to judge parents because of the kids. It's not always the parents.
No, it's not. And by the way, when you're talking about people and their kids, since we're talking about that, there's no room for judgment of any human being. These opportunities are merely self-assessment opportunities.
He should run for president, shouldn't he?
But you get what I'm saying, though, Brad. At the end of the day, if someone says, I don't want you to judge me. There's no right you've got, but let me take this opportunity to say, where did I go wrong, and what could have I course corrected, and what can I now reestablish or recreate with my son or daughter if things are off track? Listen, man, we are the authors of our only book, and the only person that really gives a shit about it is us. So if we're the only ones writing it, and we're the only ones that are really reading it, why should we care about who is judging it? It doesn't matter. Their judgment means nothing, and there's zero impact nor gravity that it has in those conversations.
Hey, speaking of our beards, you have a little gray in yours as well.
Yeah,
see a
plenty.
little gray in here.
Yes, indeed.
I'm fortunate. My gray's just coming in. So again, you're 49?
49.
Your age, I didn't have hardly any. But here it comes. How come you see people out there coloring their hair?
I think.
Are they insecure? Do they not realize that it's not fooling anybody? Or do they genuinely think that the hair color matters?
I think, look, man, Lululemon changed it all. I mean, they made poor butts look great and belly guts go gone. I mean, at the end of the day, we're living in an age of vanity, my friend. So
you believe silver foxes in?
I believe, first of all, I'm a huge advocate for anything silver. There's no such thing as gray. Well, silver is a precious metal. Gray is just a color. So, I mean, let's keep semantics aside. You get what I'm saying? But truth be told, I mean, we're in the age of vanity. So if we don't do things that are going to make you feel good, feel happy, feel empowered, then when would you? I mean, there's a very definitive period of time in your life when you should feel great, feel young, feel invincible.
Well, I was thinking about, getting rid of the grays. Let's see what it looks like. You have grays.
I got grays.
Why haven't you?
Well, first of all, that's a great assumption that you're making, that I've not made any attempts of any kind to dampen the silver.
How would you if there's gray?
Well, I wouldn't advise these secrets of both beauty and the preservation of ego. But all kidding aside, listen, Brad, I mean, if you want to dye your hair, you can. But I think right now what people need to do is own their wisdom. And wisdom comes with years. And at the end of the day, we should wear these silvers like they're badges of honor, really, because it's taken time, effort, energy, loss, victories, triumphs, letdowns to get to that color. So I think it's all perspective. If we shift the perspective, you might shift the view of how it's valuable. When you had nothing to talk about, nothing to look forward to, yeah, gray looks tired. It starts feeling old. And all of a sudden you start wondering about retirement and wondering where you should be heading off to. So it's all just perspective. And I think if we shift that, then we can shift how we view things.
That's a bomb right there. Perspective, I try to tell people all the time, like, perspective's literally the secret sauce. There could be two people in same situation, one happy, one upset. Same situation. How is it possible that one's happy and one's upset?
Totally. Look at just recently in your country where there's this incredible floodwaters, historical highs. There's this one reporter, ABC News, reports down in this one little town right there in Vermont and pulled over a man and said, "Sir, how are you guys keeping? How are you managing with these incredible storm waters?" He goes, "Gosh, I don't know how we're going to do it. We've been devastated. Hundreds of years of progress in our city is now gone, vanished, just annihilated. Don't know where we're going to begin. Don't even know how normal is going to come back." She walks down the street, finds another man, and he's just cleaning up stuff. She goes, "Sir, how are you making out during these flood times?" And he goes, "Oh, this is a fantastic time. I've met neighbors I've never known before, and I've known neighbors forever, and we're now fucking stronger than ever." Pardon my language, but that's what he said, and they bleeped him out, so I hope you bleep me out there too.
We don't bleep.
But he was on fire. He was lit. He goes, "This community came together. We're going to reinvent our town. We're going to put in a practice on how we deal with floodwaters going forward, because they ain't going to stop. And I'm excited that this town will get stronger as a result of this devastating natural disaster." Same incident, two different perspectives. And the question becomes, which perspective is more empowering? The one that robs you of your self-expression and the ability to move on and forge forward, or the one that's going to empower you and those around you to say, "You know what, this is okay. Look at who we've become because of it." And I think that if anyone were to look at perspective as a conversation piece, Brad, is you just ask yourself, really and ultimately, anybody you admire, look up to, and wish to emulate have likely gone through some real tough things. And if they haven't, then you likely wouldn't admire them.
So how do you develop a perspective of abundance and opportunity?
Oh, brother, it's easy, man. Whatever you're committed to, your body will follow. Whatever you're committed to, your body will follow. And a lot of people just on a daily basis just don't know what they're committed to.
Like when people start diets.
Well, think about it, man. And this machine up here has been perfecting only one act over 3 million years. Only one. That's to survive. That's it. Not to be happy, not to be content, not to be exciting, motivated, inspired, or inspiring. Just one act. And when you think about 3 million years of just perfecting that one act, everything else is generated. So you want to wake up inspired. You want to wake up going out there and going for a run, a jog, or going to the gym like you do, or Mike Tyson works out, then that's all a generative act. Because whatever you're committed to, your body will follow. So when people realize that you've got to generate commitment, you've got to generate choice, that is all a self-authorship act. And when you do that and not lean on anyone else to do that for you, then you start getting to the source of results rather than chasing them. You want to be at the source of the results, not chasing them.
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Now, there's obviously 7 steps, but they can buy the book if they want to keep going down that road.
Well, it's free. It's even better. It's free.
What do you mean?
Well, Richology is free. It's at my website, richarddolan.com. So you can go there and pick it up for free.
Well, that's nice of you.
Well, that's a bomb.
Huh?
That's a bomb.
Why? Is this free? That ain't bomb.
The bomb's free too.
Bombs was was designed to make people pay attention. So I'll give it a bomb. So they should pay attention. Free, dude, free. Because I always tell people, listen, if you want to change what you're getting, change what you're doing. If you want to change what you're doing, you have to change what you believe. Because you have to. If you want to change what you believe, you need new information. Because you can't change your beliefs with the same information. Isn't that weird? So you just got to get new information, and it's in that book. Now, people listen to your podcast. What are they going to listen to?
Well, the podcast that I've been running for a number of years was called The Courageous Conversation because it was born out of the pandemic. So I don't know if you knew the story, but when we were in lockdown, like you couldn't even go out. You barely could go for a walk. And so what I began to do is called up friends of mine that were authors and speakers, celebrities and icons, and said, hey, how are you doing? How are you making out in this pandemic? And I interviewed people like Grant and Elena and also Mike Tyson and the late, oh my goodness, his name just Larry David.
What do you mean the late Larry David?
Larry King, my apologies. Let me correct that.
I was going to say, shit, Larry David.
I know that. Oh man, I'm going to hear from Larry David's office now saying you just killed him off in a show. No, I meant Larry King, the beloved Larry King, and others. Marlon Wayans. I just reached out to everybody that I knew and said, hey, everyone's in lockdown and we're going to pour ourselves a drink. Either it's a glass of tea, an iced tea, or a Arnold Palmer, and just hear how you're doing. Let's have a courageous conversation, how you're coping. So that's where Courageous Conversation started. Courageous Conversation started by interviewing the Tony Hawks and the David Hasselhoffs of the world to say, hey, how are you doing? How are you making out during these real tough, odd, bizarre times? So the show continues. I'll probably do an interview maybe a month now, but we're looking forward to recalibrating it and bringing it back.
So what does your day look like? What do you do when you wake up? Because I mean, you do so much. Like, you don't work for a company. I got to go into work, and so what do you do when you wake up? What does your perfect day look like?
For me, my life is structured where, and I think everyone that's listening to the show would appreciate it. We all have a wealth to manage, and that's our time. So to me, I have a portfolio of time. So my portfolio of time is split up like an advisor would, like a consultant would, like a PR person would, where I put my time into certain portfolios. I have a coaching portfolio. I have a business portfolio. I have an investment portfolio. So I have several portfolios that I'll put time in. And depending on what time of year or what the flavor of the time is for me or where I'm just passionate at, I'll dial that up or I'll dial that back. So on a day-to-day basis, I just function as a father, as a leader, as an employer, and then as a man of efficient output. So whatever business practice I'm in, depending on what goals and aspirations, whatever objectives I've got, I put my body behind it. So it all depends. So personally right now for the summer months, I'm making sure I'm taking care of myself a little bit more. I found myself getting really, really drawn down by way of energy. Spread across too many projects, doing far too much. So went back to golf, thought I'd slow down there, got back into training myself in a bigger, more proficient way, taking care of myself in ways that were important. And that season will run its course probably by about September, and I'll pick back up. But my mornings start early. And I'm very much a routine person. So without getting to what my day's like, here's what I'll conclude on. Your day has got to be planned out. And it's got to be consistent. And here's the best part. It has to be consistent daily. Your Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays should look pretty much the same. You should get up around the same time, work out consistently, eat consistently, and go to bed at the same time consistently. And so long as you just mind those markers, everything else that you do with your time should be a powerful thing.
Damn, dude, I want to go back to where you're 18. Where you at? You just graduated high school. Did you go to college? No, you dropped out of high school.
I dropped out. I had a tough time in school because my mom was. Grade? I would have dropped out in grade 11. Would have been grade 11.
Me too.
Grade 11. So grade 11, I dropped out, and I always thought I'd get back. And like most dropouts, most, not all. So I'll leave that door open too for those who've dropped out and still have an option to going back. But I never went back. Because I had started a summer job at Midland Walwyn, which turned to Merrill Lynch, being a cold call cowboy. I was making 300 cold calls a day every day. And so
at 18?
At 18. So I was in a firm right there, right on Bay Street.
So what caused you to do that? Like, how did you know, like, hey, that's what I want to do? Did you watch a movie?
I watched the movie. You knew that. And I know we covered it earlier, but man, I watched that movie, Wall Street, and Gordon Gekko played by Michael Douglas, and Oliver Stone Flake with Charlie Sheen when he was straight and cool. I mean, that was an amazing influence on me. And it's amazing how influence comes. So for me, it was a movie. I saw this movie. Greed was good. I ran out. I bought a book on how to buy stocks in the stock market. Being very frank and honest with you, I never read a page. I just went straight to a stock firm as I knew it, and I applied for a job. The only thing they would hire me for, because I wasn't licensed nor educated, was being what they'd call today a telemarketer. So I said, done, I'll take it. So for $6 an hour, and I got paid if I got a lead, and I would get paid if they did a transaction, and that's all I did. I was a numbers guy, just banged out 300 cold calls a day every day. And that stressed my relationship at home, so I got kicked out and went on my own.
Why did it stress your relationship?
I think largely because parents just want you to do what they believe you need to do. And that's,
what did they want you to do?
Well, gosh, they wanted me to stay in school, right? Finish your education, get a high school diploma, then get yourself a job and get out into the workforce. But for me, I just didn't feel like I fit into school at that time. And so I didn't go back, and my father gave me an ultimatum. He goes, you either go back to school and come back home, or you stay out of this house and never come back. I said, well, I'm going to take the high road. I'm never coming back. So left home early, never went back. And I think through all of that, that's what really forged a big part of my entrepreneurial spirit, which is likely why
that's why. Yeah.
I'm into a lot of things.
And maybe that's why I'm the same.
You are.
The same thing happened.
Exact same thing.
But I mean, I got kicked out. I didn't choose automatically to quit school. I got kicked out because I didn't mow the lawn, do what I said I was going to do, just basically being a little punk kid. And so, my dad, being a tough ass like he was, kicked me out. So once I was kicked out, well, shit, I can do what I want. Why am I going to school?
Right.
Like, dude, I done humped them all type thing. In other words, I had nothing to worry about there. I was all good. I could still show up after school and freaking hang out with all my friends.
Yeah.
So I quit like a loser. That was it. But I never went back. And I think I've said in the past to people, I think that is kind of why I am resourceful, because while everybody else stayed in school and had to go on to college and, did that route, I was like thrown into the frickin' fire and had to work and had to pay attention and had to figure it out.
Well said. And listen, I mean, if anyone's making notes while listening to this, especially the Bomb Squad and those who watch you, is they're called crucible moments for a reason, right? So when a human being hits a crucible moment where there's this break in the path, and they can either go left or right, but to avoid disaster, an upset, a breakdown, or just a death-defying moment, that crucible moment shapes you. And it doesn't shape you, the event itself. What shapes you is the person you become to survive it. So whether it's a sudden loss, whether it's a firing, whether it was you got graded an F, or like Michael Jordan getting cut from the varsity team, and right in that moment, he says, oh yeah, watch me. And he came back better than ever. And that's a true story, and that's fact, and that's history. The reality is that the crucible moment doesn't define us. What defined us, that we live with, which is the gift, is what that crucible moment turned you into. So when we go through all those, if you ever are stuck in thinking to yourself, God, I've got it bad, I don't have it well, I'm not as lucky as Brad is, or as Rich is, or as these other people that are talking about, think again. I mean, a lot of your adversity moments were gifts. You just got to frame that right.
Well, I like that. So you had the same experience, and then that's what turned you into you watched the movie, then you said, I'm going to go be a stockbroker, and that's what turned you into this well-rounded, almost like creative. You're like you seem like an artist.
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad you said that, because actually I am a gifted artist. I had an art scholarship I never took advantage of. I can draw anything, create anything. I can write books if I had to, I can do one every day. So I'm hyper creative, but you're right. You're spot on, Brad. I'm so impressed that you said that, and grateful. So for me, being trained in the investment banking business, you're built to understand how to build things from scratch. And as a creative person, guess what a creative guy would love to do? Build things from scratch. So I think a big part of the first lift for me was growing up in the financial services business, where I was surrounded by guys who drove Rolls Royces to work, who smoked cigars at 2:00 till 4, who would take me to lunch and have martinis till 3. I mean, I grew up in an era and amongst a culture in the early 90s when that was a very interesting community. So I was was cured that way. I was matured into that community. And so
It sounds like a fun community though.
it was, dude, it was. But I remember trying to be in that community. I had no liquor tolerance till I was well into my 20s, and I didn't smoke cigars at all because I didn't dig them yet until now recently. So
Do you like him now?
I do love them now. Absolutely. So my point is that for me and for you in this conversation is that doing all those things, the financial services business, the wealth management realm, hanging out with guys who are making millions, serving people who were custodians to billions, that environment really, me marinating in that space created me because of that space, for sure.
And you stayed pretty much in the same path the whole time.
I did. So as I grew up out of that space where many people would write and say, well, how did you get connected to celebrities? And where did this whole thing with icons and legends come from? It's like, well, because what happened was, like most people who want to sell more of their services, guess what you do? You market, you network. And so I found myself sponsoring events for these icons and legends who were starting to go on these book tours. And the most famous that really was a huge tipping point for me was President William Jefferson Clinton, your 42nd president. And so I had the opportunity of being in a room. I'll never forget it, being in a room. He just launched a speaking career. And as you may recall, the way it all went was he had such a large litigative legal bill to pay that with the Monica Lewinsky issue that he had to go to work. He had to become a speaker. So he had to launch a book. So when I sponsored the first event, the truth be told, is I sponsored a booth, but at the back of the room next to the bathroom. And you know what that's like. I'm not sure if you've been in that position, but the only people you're seeing are people with full bladders and or quick reason to exit the building. So that's not where you're going to connect with people with money. So I thought, but everyone's looking at the stage. And if I was on stage, then I would have people looking at me. So how do I do that? I'm not the president. So maybe if I sponsor a way to get up there to open the day, maybe even introduce the president, that might be great. There might even be a bit of a transference of trust. And that's what happened. I hit a tipping point where I got myself up on stage and doing that. Now, you and I know, and we've seen guys right now where there's a lot of celebrity events. You speak at a lot of them, where there's conferences and guys are getting together and big money's being spent on incredible names, none of which we need to talk about right now. But there's a lot of what we call brand blending, right? Celebrity collaboration. Well, I did that 20 years ago when selfies weren't a thing and taking a picture was actually awkward because, well, you didn't have people around with cameras very often. So luckily for me, I journalized a lot of that. And to my benefit, I was able to stay that course. So I stayed the course, being able to co-brand myself as a wealth management influencer in that space by being able to be on the stages that made a lot of sense.
Have you made a lot of people a lot of money?
I've made a lot of people a lot of money. And I think more importantly, I've helped people not lose money, which is probably the more important part.
What do you see going on here in the next 3 years as far as our financial markets?
I think right now, without getting into the macro or social economic conversation, it becomes very, very simple. Just ask yourself this: what could you use a lot more of that if you did, it'd make life easier? And if you ask anybody, anyone in the studio, anyone in your staff, anyone listening in the bomb squad and beyond, the number one thing is just, quite frankly, income. If I can have income that came in more consistently, so as time went on, I didn't have to work as hard. That's the one thing people are going to be pursuing. Because we saw that after the pandemic. You had parents who had kids moving back. You had parents with kids moving back with more kids. They had a strain on their cash flow because as we grow older, we work less, right? Income starts to drop, retirement years become, and of course now assets get drawn down on. So I think the real focus for people in the next realm, the next evolution of the financial era, Brad, is going to be helping people understand their relationship to income. If you can shift your relationship to what it means to produce more income in a safe, conservative, risk mitigative way, then that matters. Is it real estate? Probably. Is it fixed income derivatives? Perhaps. Is it ETFs? Listen, I'm not a financial planner nor an advisor, but I'm a thought provoker. So as an author and as a researcher, I understand that market, and I understand that if you shift people's relationship to income, you've got themselves shifting their relationship to a financial life.
You know, if I were to listen to your podcast, I feel like I'll hear all kinds of information. Do you have anything based on sales?
Well, ironically, yeah. I mean, probably the number one thing that we've done in the past that really helps sales is I produced a program called Rich Speak, where a lot of people would come to me and said, gosh, how are you so, how did Brad put it, slick or smooth,
polished?
Polished. I like that.
Yeah, you're very polished.
That's all part of just what you create and generate. So I created a program called Rich Speak, which I took all the years of all the people that trained me in how to speak, present, and converse, 101, one to few, one to many, and I put it into a program. And the reason why I believe that that program is by far the best sales program is because a big function of sales is how one relates to others, whether one to few, or one to many. And so in this era, in this age, and you know this better than me and better than most, is social media and those platforms amplifies your ability to speak. And whether it's conversational or whether it's instructional or whether it's instrumental, though that's the skill set that really gets stepped over. And I believe that's the skill set that I train a lot of people on with a lot of professional prowess.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute, because a lot of people listening have businesses. They're already going to, let's say, recognize that you know what the fuck you're talking about. So they have businesses, they want to get rolling. What would you say that their, I would say, skill set deficiency is? Sales?
100% sales. I
Because
think
most people, like if they have a problem with their business, their top line is not raising.
well, and it's math. You know, it's not a matter of philosophy or people or perspective. It's just math. You want more sales, you don't have to sell more people. And so if you increase that output, you're going to increase the input. But the question then becomes, how are you selling? How are you conversing? And some of the problems that I find from people who are entrepreneurs and innovators out there selling their products, programs, or services is they wouldn't buy this stuff themselves. Part one, right? So in other words, the sellers aren't believers. They're not using their own stuff. Number two is they're not a living demonstration of the very thing they want to have people do. And that's another one. They don't have any proof, any social proof, any personal proof in their life that they themselves do that thing. But the third most important part, and this one's the real killer, is they just don't have the passion, the conviction, or the persuasion. That's not an act of moving others artificially, but authentically. Like, man, this cream I put on my skin, man, this skin feels so buttery. I can grab toast and rub it across. You gotta touch this. Like, I'm blown away by what I got. I don't even got no butter here, but you know what I'm saying, right? Sales is not an act. That's a technique. It's an enrollment. It's like something so damn good. I want some of that. And I think people are disconnected from the humanization, the humanity of why it is that I'm selling. You're not really selling, you're sharing. And when you share with passion and conviction, with power and grace and ease, man, your revenues will increase because you're not working for them. It's an expression of them.
What are your goals over the next 3 to 5? Like you have to be one of those planned individuals.
You know what, man, I hate to disappoint. I'm not exactly a planned guy. I'm very fluid. There's a part of me that really feels very organic in approach. Meeting you today may just be one of those crucible moments that may reshape, redefine who you and I both are in the next 2-5 years. I don't know. But if I came with a plan and I came with an agenda, you'd feel it a mile away, especially from a guy like me looking this way.
Yeah, but don't you have one?
Of course I do. But it doesn't lead me. It drives me. So that way, it's almost like I've got an idea of where I'm going to go, and I've mapped out routes A, B, and C, but I'm not going to look at those routes because I want to enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, in 3 to 5 years, if I called you back, if you said today what you'd be doing then.
Oh, I'll declare it now. I mean, right now, this firm that we're building, the Legacy Council of the Americas, the assets under management currently are $2.5 billion. We'll be back at $5 billion. When we come back, we'll be at $5 billion in the next 3 years.
If I have listeners that are loaded.
Yes.
Because I'm surprised all the time how many listeners I have that are freaking loaded. I'm like, damn, why are you listening to me, dog? But they listen. If they have some questions and they want to invest, where would they go?
Well, they can contact me directly and we can have a conversation about where they're at, why they're unhappy, or what it is that they're seeking more of.
Okay.
That's one. Two, our approach is very simple. We don't take risks. We're not ones who love what we call the standard deviation ratios. We don't like lots of ups and downs. We love understanding consistent, inescapable income. And so my celebrity clients, whether they're past leaders or whether they're actors or whether they're athletes, I'm the most boring part of their portfolio because they know that they can count on that piece, but I'd rather be that guy. So for my team, for our artificially intelligent platforms, for the advisors that we have on board, I've got a team of 12 that give great advice, another team of 100 that are wholesalers, is that what we call for our team? We're a boutique shop with a boutique approach to a simple conversation.
Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I'd love to know what it is for you, Brad. What's missing for you when you think about what you've established, what you've created, where you now are as a brand, as a man, as a leader, as someone who you said, and these are your words, trusted and relied upon, followed and revered, well, what would you see is next for you? What would you love to do if someone can step in and say, you know what, we'll make that happen?
It's a great question. You know, right now I'm evaluating where I am and where I need to be, or where I want to be, because I don't need to be anywhere anymore. But where do I want? What do I want? It's hard to define what you want. So I'm trying to figure out, what do I want? Because again, people say, Brad, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. You could make an extra couple million over here per month. I'm like,
well, then what drives you? What's
couple
driving
million
you?
extra per month, though. That's like, I like that idea.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, because I could, that'd raise it up a notch.
Yeah.
But do I really want to go do that? Well, I don't know. And then I start hemming and hawing, and like, did I do as good a job here as I could have right here in this company? I don't really think so. Shouldn't I focus on this and get it across the finish line before I worry about this? Or right now I'm in this I don't know stage, and I hate being in it. So I'm reflecting right now.
Do you know, it's funny that Homo sapiens have often been called Homo sapiens for a number of reasons, but a number of behavioral psychologists would suggest that we're more like Homo prospectus, meaning that we're the only species on the planet that actually contemplates the future. The only one. I mean, you don't have bears like just saying, I wonder what I'm going to eat before hibernation. You know, you don't have seagulls wandering around wondering what they're going to watch on Tuesday. We are the only species that actually contemplates the future. So as you contemplate your future, what would you love to have in place? Because I'll tell you a couple things. I'm going to project now for a second. This show deserves to be a Netflix show, an Apple channel, right? I mean, it deserves to be scaled and institutionalized in such a way that now you not only are able to, in fact, create a larger, wider platform where you're into the countryfication model, where you're entering countries. And you know what I mean by countryfication? People would say globalization, like let's get it around the world in different languages. But I'm talking about between languages and laws. Countryfication is being sensitive to the cultural nuances, where maybe the word bomb is not a good word to be using when we're in our, Middle East markets, as an example.
100%.
Right. So you get what I'm saying?
It might get me suppressed now. I don't know.
Might be, but things to look at.
What would you change?
That's a bit premature of a question, but let me get to what I'd like to alter. What would be worth altering is looking at a greater vision that if you were to do this all over again, here's the way I would approach it if I were sitting where you are. If you were to do this all over again, knowing all that you know right up until this moment, and rewind the tape, and you were able to do it again, right? What would you do different that would leave you far more optimally leveraged, monetized, scaled, and even globally reach? What would you have done different? And I think right there, if you enter that conversation that way, it's not like you're looking for something to do or do different. Like Michael Jordan would often be asked, what does he do in his off time? In the old days, he would look at video of himself playing. And they would ask him, well, what are you looking for when you're watching yourself play? He goes, I'm looking for what's missing in the game. Oh, you're looking for what's wrong with your game. He goes, no. I'm looking for what's missing that if it were present would make a difference. So right now, I think you're at that stage in your life and state of mind where you're not looking to do anything. Like you could probably coast right through to the finish line and you'd be completely fine, cool, and still gray bearded and still full headed. Those lenses might have to thicken, but you'll be okay. So all kidding aside, I think that's the approach, Brad. I think that's the way to look at it. So what would you want to do? What would you have done different if you did this all over again? Knowing what you know.
The podcast?
Yeah.
Probably prepared a little bit more for each guest. Filtered what I say a little bit more. Became less real, less me. I would have probably performed a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because like, again, if you go back and look at all the episodes, it's just me talking to someone. You'll see people in the comments, dude, come on, you're interrupting them. But that's because when you say something, I think of something, I want to say something. It's just like a real conversation.
And by the way, for people who are listening, I just interrupted Brad. This has been a real conversation. Like I've been locked in because I do know I'm in a conversation with you. I'm not performing, I'm not acting, and nor are you. I do want to acknowledge you that this has been a real conversation. I'm grateful for that. It's not scripted. You got one piece of paper there.
Well, see, that's what I would change. Maybe.
Fine. So
but how do you know? Like, what if everyone likes dropping bombs because it's not like that?
So that's a secondary conversation, but I want to bring something up because it might be a very cool insight for you. What I'm detecting already, and early in this conversation, and I mean we're on camera, on air, is first of all, nothing that you said just now is about doing something different to be bigger, badder, and or bolder. There's something about you that already occurs to me that you want to get it better. You wish you had been able to do it in such a way that would leave you far more impressed with the work that you've done. So that's
or just look like I tried.
Well, who do you think doesn't see that you've tried? Interesting. So for those who do,
because I haven't, like, again, I told someone the other day, I haven't really worked in like 10 years. They're like, what are you talking about, dude? You're here all the time. I know, but I'm half-assing it. People are like, what do you mean you're half-assing it? Like, compared to what I should have been doing and could have been doing, I haven't done anything. Now, to me, that's just the truth. Like, again, I could come across and try to tell everybody, oh yeah, I'll but I'd be a hypocrite myself. Why don't I have a six-pack right now? Well, because again, every time I start getting in good shape, I think, I don't need to be in that good a shape. My wife loves me as I am. Like, who really cares? I want to be happy. I don't want to die fucking all 3% body fat and starving. Here, let me go get myself a Five Guys and fries. We'll start again Monday. Right. That's called backslide. So do I backslide? Sure I do. But at the end of the day, I'm also on the other side of the fence where that rationalization that keeps me like that, I believe it a little bit. In other words, I don't want to die with 3% body fat. I want to have tasted a fucking cronut. You ever had one of those?
I have, and I love them.
Dude, I want to have had those. Like, I would be pissed if I were working out and eating right and die. And all of a sudden it's like, you mean I could have fucking had a hamburger yesterday, but I chose a piece of tilapia instead? Why? Well, there has to be moderation. So anyway, I don't think I've met my potential.
So what's your life's mission?
I think I half-assed for the last 10 years at best.
So what's your life mission? What's your life's mission?
I've mishandled deals. I've, made all kinds of mistakes. There's all kinds of things that I could have just done better. Where I believe, go back 10 years and redo them, I would be worth several $billion. And I'm not. And it makes me think to myself, dude, see, but I did that before too. I call it maturing. It's called, you get a little bit more mature and you start to realize, shit. And then you just keep developing until pretty soon you're like an 85-year-old fucking sage.
Well, this is a healthy conversation to have, not just with you, but for anybody. I mean, this is a part of the type of financial life coaching I give. And I train people in giving, but there's really three words, right? And we're talking about all three right now. And you're starting to notice that the way in which they're gauged and then being calculated. One is net worth. And net worth, right? You take everything that you own, subtract everything that you owe, and that's net worth, right? It's a financial number. Then you have self-worth. And self-worth has been a big part of what we've been doing over the past several decades, given that people are really looking to invest in themselves to be better for themselves and others. But the new one, which is where a lot of time and effort is going into, and this might come down to you, is life worth. And life worth, by definition, is the value you give to and get from life. The value you give to and get from life. So for me, it feels like there's still a net worth conversation, a game worth playing for you, and there's a self-worth conversation. That life worth will come. It comes with age and time. Right? I mean, some people call that philanthropy, giving back, charitable work, but it'll come. And even this work is great work. It's making an impact, the time that we spend and the things that we share. But I think there's a game. That's the takeaway, Brad. There's a game worth reinventing for yourself that's worth playing, that has you rediscover the real player that you really are and put you on a field of play that has you find a game worth fucking crushing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're talking business.
See that if you get to wake up every day and say, I don't have to wake up, I get to wake up, and I don't have to do this, but Rich is having me do this, man, this is going to be a great day, and it's only Tuesday. That's cool, because that's really what it's about. Life is a game, and we should play it like a sport. But most people play it recreationally, like for fun, pass the time, get to the next day. It's a fucking sport. Play to win every day. You want to learn how to play it really well? Find other people that are crushing their games. And that's the thing that's enviable about those names that we've cited earlier on. And now also a person that you are in the market. There's a person that you have. There's a persona that you've embodied in the market where people are like, I want to be like Brad Lee. So now it's about raising your own standard because quite frankly, you've become comfortable in the one that you've grown in.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's completely okay.
I don't hold myself too accountable. In other words, I'm not bummed or depressed, but you just hit it on the head. It's like, I think it's time for something new, something better, something faster.
Absolutely. And I think what I've done well, and I think you're getting a sense of it, but you're nowhere close to being convinced by it. I'm leaving that window open. Is to be able to say, what if we created a whole new game? What if we really were to find a way to institutionalize your IP? That means you, what you know, who you've been, what you've done, take it to the next level. Think about a really wonderful media group, media company, a Netflix panel. Maybe we're able to, even given the work that you've done and for people who are looking at using social media in a powerful way, create a new platform on those streaming platforms to give them the opportunity of having a voice. I mean, there's a way for you to be really, truly the Anthony Bourdain of human betterment. Get out there and immerse yourself in the road and get caught up in the local cuisine and get into a really cool jam session in New Orleans while you're interviewing some icons, legends, and gods of that industry, right? Of that economy, of that culture, and give us a sense of what it's like. Talk to us, Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain, who was like, man, I love this guy. He's pulling me into places I would never go and trying shit I would never put in my mouth, but I like this guy because he's doing it for me. That's the trust people have in you, where you're really their big bro who's willing to do the work to grow and inspire people to do it the same way. I think that's the fun part. That's the part where you can reconnect those two, where you can make billions and drop bombs. I mean, that I think is the key for you.
Dude, make billions and drop bombs. What a life that sounds like.
Now, there's a bumper sticker, right? Make billions and drop bombs.
Yeah.
That could be our new co-venture.
Hey. What's the split? We got to talk turkey. Folks, and by the way, what if the Bomb Squad could do anything for you, what would you like them to do?
Hey, listen, I mean, if the Bomb Squad is comprised of people who are looking for a way to learn where they can get their relationship right with money, wealth and worth. Money, of course, is currency, wealth being the shiny stuff, and worth being the stuff that you and I just recently talked about. If they want to be able to have a great financial life, not a good one, not an okay one, but a great financial life, one that I define as one that's whole, complete, and performing, and they want to put together their own financial life plan, one that is going to be rich with what matters to them, views that they value, and a perspective they can trust, and they can co-author it. I'd love for them to lean on me to help them co-craft that plan for them. Pretty simple. That's the offer.
Folks, and they just go to richarddolan.com.
richarddolan.com.
DOLAN, folks. Well, Richard, I'm glad you came.
A pleasure.
I want you to do a part 2 one of these days.
I love that.
So we'll have to get you back on here for a part 2.
I promise.
Folks, go follow him at Richard. Is that a dot? No.
Yeah, it is a dot.
Richard.Dolan on social media, or go to richarddolan.com. Look him up. Appreciate you coming. And until next time, as always, keep it real. It should be a company. But like, if I could pay some dude or girl, I don't care. Actually, a girl preferably. If I could pay someone to come over to my house with a ladder and the filters and the light bulbs, all the right light bulbs
and filters.
Yeah, once a month, come over.
Yeah.
Are there any? If you come over and there's no bulbs out and there's nothing to replace, it's $50 for a visit and go away.